hundreds of patients. In fact, the latest news release from your office, 900 patients relocated out of the state.
Absolutely.
What states are taking them?
Well, right now it's mostly New England, obviously, states, but we're also hearing that they are filling up rapidly, so we're looking for space outside of the New England area.
All right, Admiral Prokoska, we want to bring you into this conversation. What is the federal response so far to this?
The federal government is working very hard to support the state's needs in the areas the governor had already identified. We are working to establish a plume model that will give us an indication of what the contaminated area is in New London, and then also to work with the state to establish a sampling regime where we can do the sampling to be able to determine almost exactly where the contaminated area is. And we want to get that information out to the public as soon as we can once we have the information. We're also assisting the state in providing additional doctors and additional medical equipment to the state hospitals and coordinating with the state in the transport of patients outside the state area. As you know, there's a similar incident, a biological incident in New Jersey. That's also taxed the overall medical system. And so we want to make sure from the federal government perspective that we are as responsive as we can be to the state's needs for medical care for our citizens.
Still setting up, it sounds like, some of these procedures. We're 2 days into this. We don't have a plume designated yet, and the sampling has still not happened. Is this unusual, or is this how long it takes?
No, it's not unusual. It's how long it takes. And really, you know, what we just determined is, through intelligence information, which I really can't go into detail, is how the mustard was dispersed. And that has an awful lot to do with the plume model area that you'd be using. So now that we know that, we can develop a very good plume model and then quickly do the sampling so we can get the information out to the citizens of Connecticut.
And very quickly, are you still investigating the plane that the witnesses saw?
Yes, we are. We're investigating every possible lead. We're investigating the plane, which is up in Maine. The FBI has the lead for the investigation, and they are aggressively working to address any possible lead we have.
All right, Admiral and Governor, thank you very much for spending some of your day with us.
Thank you.
For us, obviously the investigation is still continuing, and we'll bring you the details as they become available. Back to you.
Donna Gregory, thank you very much, Donna. It merits mentioning once again what the Governor said. What we told you before and what was based on what came from local authorities in New London, Connecticut, that is that the shelter-in-place directive had been lifted, at least from the locals' standpoint, and that people were free to move around so long as they did not go to the downtown area or the pier, is not so. They are still not entirely sure where the substances may have landed. They are still not entirely sure what this substance is, says the Governor, and therefore shelter in place remains active. That is where it stands right now. The state never did lift that directive, and clearly it is staying in place. Shelter in place if you are in or around the affected area. Now, we've got to move to New Jersey. Fear and anxiety creating an intensely charged atmosphere there. Trouble has erupted. We have learned of what can only be called a riot at one of the state's pods. VNN's Nolene McGrath is in Rahway. She's got a live report. What's happened, Nolene?
First, I should correct you a little bit. Riot is a little strong. It was a disturbance. There was a group of people getting off of a bus in front of the building, and as they came through the building, they have to go through a metal detector. Whether a few people didn't want to go through or not, I'm not sure. I happened to be standing there waiting for someone we were going to interview, and a man just rushed right through the metal detector. A couple of people behind him. A couple of people have been arrested. For more details, and I know they're still sketchy at this point, we go to the Rahway Police Chief, Captain John Roger. Can you tell us, about these arrests and to the best of your knowledge, what might be behind them?
Sure. We had a few people, 2 at this time, I believe. It's still under investigation. Attempt to breach our security perimeter. When it got to the metal detector point, they made aggressive movements away from the area to try and get into the pod. They were immediately taken into custody by Rahway police officers. They're presently incarcerated at the Rahway Police Department and undergoing interrogation to determine exactly what their intent was, whether they were just pod participants coming here for prophylaxis that were inpatient, or if they had some other agenda. And we'll relay that information through the county OEM to the state police and the FBI.
Just for a little more detail for folks, and I saw them come through, and your men were on this very quickly. They shut down the doors to the pod. People came and they were assisting, and certainly one was, what can only be described as taken down and cuffed very quickly. Is this some sort of procedure or drill that you go through in terms of security here for pods?
Actually, they used their normal police procedures, addressing force with force. He was immediately taken to the ground and restrained, handcuffed, taken into custody, and transported to Rahway Police Department.
And in terms of, we have the metal detectors in front in the building here or whatnot. Why the metal detectors? Is something when you were coming up with the original plan of obviously, as we've mentioned, there are, many people who are dead, many more who are certainly fearful that they may have plague. This is something that you just have to contend with when you're planning things like this.
Absolutely. In our pod design, we had to take into account that in the biological contamination situation that we're in right now, that the point of distribution to prophylaxis the masses would certainly be a target. And that's why we have metal detectors here. We don't allow any guns, knives, weapons of any sort in here. No one is allowed access without going through the metal detector.
Captain John Roger, I know the investigation is ongoing. We'll look to you for more details throughout the day here, but we appreciate your time. Again, 2 people arrested trying to breach security here at the Rahway pod, trying to storm their way through the metal detectors at the front of the building. Police were on them very quickly, took them down. As we say, 2 in police custody right now, trying to ascertain why they might have been trying to rush through. Forrest?
Nolene McGrath in Rahway. Obviously, people are becoming increasingly concerned as they begin listening to these numbers. Here's what we got right now. 2,150 people, we are told, have died because of the plague in New Jersey. That is up from the last number that we got, 816. We are also told that the state of New Jersey is planning to dose people, the antibiotics, every single person in the state of New Jersey within 48 hours. Now, if I'm correct, there are about 8 million people. Is that the right number? 8 million people in New Jersey. So if you do the math here, that's 17,000 people per hour receiving medication. And that's assuming that you've got enough pods up already. We've got 2 pods operating in the state of New Jersey right now, and they are in the key infected areas. There are no other pods that have been opened at all, and they're hoping to move, on average, 17,000 people per hour through these places. It can be done, I suppose, but they're not doing it yet. So that is one of the problems that they're trying to sort through, and that's leading to a lot of anxiety on the part of people, which you saw there in Rahway. Now, as for Connecticut, the first responders have been going through a lot of stresses themselves. They have to deal with the fear that they could be affected by mustard. They have to deal with the fear that the plague could spread all the way up there. But as VNN's Lisa Healy tells us, workers are focusing on the work that they have to deal with.
Bobby's right here with the search camp.
Rescue teams continue their frantic search for victims who may still be alive in the rubble. Workers are just starting to learn that plague has been released in New Jersey. However, first responders we spoke to are not concerned that plague could spread to Connecticut.
Well, all first responders are aware that there is the possibility of a chemical agent, so everyone does take all the precautions that we are prepared to take.
Meanwhile, search and rescue personnel from different states are working side by side on this rubble pile. They hail from Connecticut, Massachusetts, and even New Jersey, the state where plague has been declared.
We were all tested before we actually go on the pile. I would think if anybody has been exposed, it would have been detected by now. And like I said, we're all pretty well protected.
Even workers from New Jersey feel it is unlikely they were exposed to the plague before leaving home.
Always a possibility, but I wouldn't lay awake at night losing sleep over it, I can tell you that.
The response is the same from Connecticut DMAT, Disaster Medical Assistance Team. Officials from that group say they have been observing universal medical precautions when treating patients in this field hospital. The same steps, they say, would protect them from plague.
When we're working, we absolutely take the precautions that we need to take to sort of think of every patient is infected with something. So that's why the gloves, the mask, the goggles.
Should New Jersey rescue workers undergo special testing before mingling with other workers? Could plague spread to Connecticut, at the blast site, or elsewhere in the state? VNN will continue to monitor the situation. In New London, Lisa Healy, VNN.
Well, as all of this has been going on, as you can imagine, law enforcement officials, intelligence community has been trying to find out exactly what has happened here, whether these events are connected. They're treating them as though connected, but they haven't gotten the hard information, or at least haven't told us about hard information at this point. And they are obviously concerned about whether there may be other incidents ahead of them. Our terrorism expert, Jeff Cousins, has been doing some investigating of his own. And you've been looking into this, working some of your sources. Jeff, what have you got?
I have. I've been in contact with some of my French sources, and what I've found so far is that Yasser Abdul, otherwise known as Charles Hilton.
We should say Yasser Abdul was one of the guys that was said to be in that sports utility vehicle that had the sprayer in the back at Kean University that was connected to plague.
Precisely. This vehicle was registered to him, and we know that he was in touch, in fact, with Fatima Barakat, or I should say was in the car with her when that car was pulled over on March 27th. Well, we've learned that Abdul has traveled frequently to Morocco in the past and taken part in jihadi training there. And that's as far as I've gotten with him. But what's very interesting is that Barakat allegedly holds a Ph.D. in microbiology from a university in Paris, and her husband died fighting with FSLTE in Algeria in 1999.
FSLTE, to be clear, is the Salafist terrorist organization.
Correct.
And they are, in some fashion, connected with al-Zahir.
Yes, they are. In fact, after they broke off from the GIA in 1998, owing to the GIA's tactics of massacring civilians, which created dissent within the Algerian jihadi movement, the head of al-Zahir moved to finance them, apparently, and since they've really spread abroad as Algerian authorities have tried to suppress the group. They're in Europe, they're in North America. Interestingly, they're in Canada as well. They also share a spiritual advising source who's been based in the United Kingdom, one individual over there who has ties with both al-Zahir as well as FSLTE.
So this woman, Fatima Baraka, is a microbiologist?
That's what I understand. That's what my French sources tell me.
What is her nationality?
I don't have that information now. I would assume it's Algerian. I cannot be sure, but I know that FSLTE has cells and networks all across North Africa, so we can't be positive in that. All I know is that her husband died fighting jihad in 1999 against Algerian authorities.
Now here's something that you and I, Jeff, have talked about throughout the day, and that is this fellow Yasser Abdul that you were just talking about, the man to whom the car is registered. And again, that is the sports utility vehicle that has this sprayer on the back that apparently was spraying plague. He has his real name, and the car is registered to the name of Charles Alfred Hilton. This is from the FBI. And the FBI has also told us that he is further described as 35 years old, with an olive complexion, 6'2", 190 pounds. He is, unless I'm mistaken here, an American citizen.
Yes, he is. This is really unprecedented. It calls back to some of the individuals who were arrested after 9/11, who had trained abroad and sought to commit acts of terrorism against the United States, but were apprehended before they were actually able to enact their plan. Now you have an American, potentially, an American radical Islamic convert who has been involved in an act of bioterrorism in the continental United States. This is a stretch for this community who are normally entrusted with the safeguarding of the sanctity of mosques, safeguarding them against encroachment by law enforcement sources. But to date, these people really haven't been involved in overt acts of violence against the United States, and this is very concerning.
There is this other person who was in the car, and his name is Ali Wada Bashir. And about him, we seem to know very little.
I know very little about him either. And as far as I understand it, there's been a bolo that's been issued for him.
A bolo is?
Be on the lookout.
And we were told that there were going to be some photos here. I know that the FBI is stressed, but we had hoped that they would be able to deliver some photos that we could list for people. We remain hopeful that that information will come across. But the FBI wants us to know also that they're paying attention to Connecticut. And there they are looking into this Beechcraft aircraft, and the tail number now has been released. Some witnesses saw this plane fly over the New London area where the festival was going on a couple of hours before the suicide bomber drove his car into a first aid tent. The tail number is 90NKA. 90NKA. It is a Beechcraft aircraft. They have custody of it. It was found abandoned up in Maine. There was a kind of crop duster sort of attachment to it, which again was available for dispersing some sort of aerosol, not unlike what we saw in New Jersey. And we are told, Jeff, that they are treating this as though the incidents are connected, as though somehow that this is all of a piece, although the last thing they told us was they don't have hard information that that's so.
We're talking about the events, the suicide bombing and the aircraft flyover.
And New Jersey.
Yeah, that would make sense. And I think this nexus goes back to the FSLTE and the potential involvement of the American radical Islamic convert here, Charles Hilton, if indeed he knowingly lent his SUV to be used in this manner. We simply haven't established that concretely, but all events suggest that this is the case now. And again, this is very disturbing, a huge stretch for the American radical Islamic convert community, many of whom have former military training, many of whom were felons, in fact, and look to convert their criminality into use for Islam as they embrace Salafism.
Well, you and I remember how quickly law enforcement officials moved in Oklahoma City.
Correct.
They started off on a road in which they thought it was Middle Eastern in origin. Turns out not to have been at all. And very quickly they were able to wrap it up. What we've got here, a whole series of leads. We've got this car where they know that there are 3 people involved, 1 person in custody who is apparently not cooperating, and that's this Fatima Baraka. And they have the plane. We are told that in Canada they have somebody that they call a person of interest that has been detained. And then there are these transport vessels that were picked up, 2 of them, off the coast of the United States by the U.S. Coast Guard. And obviously, they think they're precursor chemicals, possibly to mustard gas, that were found in some crates. And a lot of people that they want to talk to, if they're not talking to them already. So that's a lot of information to sift through.
Unquestionably. And what this says to me is that there's another source that's involved. There's a bonding glue, essentially, that holds all these incidents together, and that, in my opinion, is al-Zahir.
And then, of course, there is that looming question. As they sort through trying to deal with the plague, as they sort through trying to deal with everything that's happening in Connecticut, could there be more?
Yeah, we simply don't know. In this case, if we look at Madrid, we know that local operatives were interested in carrying out a protracted insurgency. This was their goal. This was
a bomb, basically, in Madrid.
Correct. It was a series of bombs, and then there was the series of events culminated in the suicide of a number of these operatives in an apartment building. Now, we know that they were interested in doing more than what they were actually able to carry out. We don't know if this is the case here, the difference being the operatives in Madrid were predominantly local. They knew the lay of the land. Here it appears that we have, beyond just local assets, we have foreign influences coming in. They may not know the area as well as some of the local individuals. This complicates the picture, assuming that indeed we do have the involvement of American radicals.
If you would, before we leave this, Jeff, you've gotten a key piece of information pushed forward here, and it is about this woman who is now being held in custody by the FBI, I assume. Her name is Fatima Baraka. She was picked up after she was trying to leave the United States using a false passport at Newark Airport, a Canadian passport, and you've learned a little more about her background.
Exactly. She was a microbiologist, a PhD microbiologist, which suggests she would be someone who they could call on to provide them with some of the expertise necessary to weaponize some of these agents.
Jeff Cousins, well done, sir. Thank you very much. A terrorism expert. By the way, just to knock down a bit of information that we had earlier, yesterday, as a matter of fact, we were told that there was a belief that she may have been exposed herself, Fatima Baraka, to plague. And earlier today, we were told that is not the case. She was not exposed. However, she is not cooperating, according to FBI officials. Let's go to New Jersey now. Kate Epstein has been sorting through all of this. And Kate, this is an enormously difficult day for New Jersey in terms of being able to deliver these medications as well as control the movements of people all around the state.
Absolutely, and there are a few things going on concurrently here. We have now the 2,150 New Jersey residents who have been declared dead as a result of plague. We have a medical emergency response going on. Simultaneously, we have the investigation into the terrorism incident here. So we've got a criminal investigation going on. Now, the one person who is the chief law enforcement officer in the state of New Jersey who has to deal with both the investigation and the medical situation is Attorney General Mr. Peter Harvey, and he joins us now. Attorney General Harvey, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
First, I want to get to something that Forrest mentioned, and that's the pods. People are trying to dispense medication to all of the residents of New Jersey. How are we doing? What's being done?
Well, we're making progress in dispensing the medication. We are about to open up schools probably high schools in each of the counties. We're making that determination now because we want to develop the best distribution system. But every county will have at least one and probably multiple points of dispensing for the dispensing of the medication.
You know, earlier today, the health commissioner of the state of New Jersey, Dr. Fred Jacobs, says that he wanted to make sure everyone was able in New Jersey to get this medication within 48 hours. And he said, quote, if we're able to accomplish this, we'll have a lead over the epidemic. Realistically speaking, 8,414 plus people in the state of New Jersey. If we have one or two pods.
Actually, a little more, 8.6 million.
There you go. Are we going to be able to do this?
It's going to be a difficult task. Keep something in mind, though. We believe that the persons most in need of the medication first are those in the two counties where we believe the biological hazard was originally released, the two counties that were declared to be red first. That's Middlesex and Union counties. So we're going to pay a lot of attention to those counties. We believe that persons in other outlying areas of the state, the extreme north, the extreme west, the extreme south, are in less of a danger. Does not mean that they're not going to get the medication, and it doesn't mean we're going to get it to them in a slow time frame. It just means that we want to develop a distribution system that does not create panic and that protects people as best as possible.
And again, I don't want to dwell on this, but just a couple numbers to keep in mind. If we have 8.4 plus million people in the state of New Jersey, divide that by 48 hours, you're talking about trying to get 175,000 plus people medicine each hour. So we clearly have a long road ahead of us.
That's correct. And we're going to work as quickly as we can to make sure that these points of dispensing are open, that they're open for long lengths of time, and that they are convenient for people to get to, and that we have the appropriate security there. What we want to tell the public more than anything else is don't panic. Don't panic.
And then we see that situation in Rahway, if I might interject. Sure. It was determined Nolene McGrath from VNN fell short of calling it a riot. She said it did seem to be a disturbance, but it was clear that security was there, and they supposedly took down, we weren't there, but Captain Rogers from the Rahway Police Department spoke, took down the person and escorted him or her away. Can we rest assured, can the New Jersey residents be rest assured that there's going to be adequate security at these pods?
No question about it. The municipal police force, as you saw in Rahway, is on the scene and will be on the scene for all of the pods. That's number one. Number two, they will be supplemented by state troopers where necessary. In some places, state troopers are the local police, so they will be at the pods. Thirdly, they'll also be supplemented by the National Guard where necessary.
You know, in a situation like this, when people are breaking the law, so to speak, they may not be doing so out of malicious intent, if you will. It could be out of fear.
It's mostly out of fear.
So a couple of questions. Are you sensitive to the fears of these people? In particular, man comes into Rahway, breaks through. He has to get his medicine. I know that he's been escorted to the police department, but will he get the meds that have been required and mandated that he get?
Yeah, even though someone may break through, even though they may be stopped by the police, even though they may be arrested, it doesn't mean they're going to be denied medical treatment or the medication that they need to receive. We're going to make sure that everyone gets it. We want people to remain calm because it's easier to dispense the medication if people pass through in an orderly manner. If somebody breaks through the line or breaks through a door and creates a disruption in the facility, that stops the dispensing of the medication.
Which is what we heard from Nolene, that things were shut down for a while. And considering that we need to get 175,000 plus people medication per hour, we really can't afford to have these distractions.
That's correct.
One other point worth noting, in a situation like this, particularly post 9/11, there's been a lot of talk of civil liberties and people's rights being taken away. Point blank, in a situation like this, does safety and security supersede civil liberties?
Well, it depends. Mostly, yes. Safety and security are the number one and number two priorities. That does not mean that the Constitution is going to be suspended or the Bill of Rights is going to be suspended. It does not mean that officers are going to be going through people's homes, searching them without cause. It doesn't mean that. But it does mean that we must protect our lives. We must protect our safety and health. And we're going to do that. And we're going to do that within the bounds of the Constitution.
Which leads to another issue of restricted movement. Forrest Sawyer was speaking with a couple of people about this on the air earlier. It sounds as though, and I think you confirmed this prior to us going on air, that restricted movement is in effect throughout the state of New Jersey?
That's correct. And we're at threat level red throughout the state.
And so how is this being enforced? Do we actually have enough manpower and woman power to make sure that New Jerseyans are not leaving the state and are staying put. How do we enforce that?
We do. Well, keep in mind that we have a complement of 2,700 state troopers. We also have about 566 municipalities. Not every municipality has a police force, but we have a lot of police officers out. We also have sheriff's officers, and we're being supplemented by the National Guard. We are relying, first and foremost, as we always do, on the good faith of the public. And many residents, from what we can tell, are honoring our request that they stay at home.
But as you all mentioned, there is the fear factor, and that leads to the possibility of some people wanting to leave, some people wanting to barge through and get there. But you're saying that you've got the people in place to take care of that.
That's correct. Now, there are going to be situations where some pods are not as orderly as others. We should expect that. There are going to be situations where people are frightened, as you point out, and they're going to panic. We should expect that. But that will be the exception, not the rule.
Okay. Attorney General Peter Harvey from the state of New Jersey, thank you for your time. Again, as the Attorney General has pointed out for us, they are trying in the state of New Jersey to open up pods as quickly and as effectively as they can in as many areas as possible. And as you noted, the numbers, 2,150 New Jersey residents confirmed dead as a result of the pneumonic plague. That is 3 times the amount of New Jersey residents who were killed in September of 9/11. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of perspective about just how huge a crisis we're dealing with.
All right, Kate Epstein in New Jersey. Thank you very much, Kate. We've got a little bit of time left, and I want to move on to some new information that we've got. We've been talking about the FBI pressing on for some suspects, most particularly 2 men who have been connected to that Chevy Blazer that was found at Kean University. We all know about it now. It was found with a kind of aerosol can in the back and nozzles coming out of the rear window of the driver's side, and a plague bacillus was connected to it. Clearly, this was involved in some fashion in spreading the plague. A woman, Fatima Baraka, now we know that she is a microbiologist, PhD microbiologist, is in police custody. They are looking for 2 men. One of them is Charles Alfred Hilton, also known as Yasir Abdul. I think we have his picture here. He may be driving a black 1999 Ford Taurus. Look, I'll hold up the picture here if I can. We're going to shoot the camera. Can you see that? This man right here. He is Charles Alfred Hilton. He may be driving a 1999 black Taurus. He is the man who was registered to the vehicle that they found. He is, we believe, an American citizen. So they are looking for this man. If you see him, if you see this man at all, go to your FBI office or the local American embassy or consulate if you're outside the United States. This is a man they very much want to talk to. His associate is this man right here. Let's put it up. This is Ali Wada Bashir. We don't know very much about him. He may be in northern New Jersey. He is an associate of Charles Alfred Hilton. He may or may not be traveling with him. But these are the 2 people that they're looking for. We have just gotten these pictures in. So if you happen to see any of this at all, either of these 2 men, and remember, Charles Alfred Hilton may be driving a black Taurus, New Jersey registration, YTR 225. It is or a 2001 Chevrolet Tahoe with New Jersey registration ABD 269, or a 2000 Ford Explorer with New Jersey registration DCB 332. They're looking for all of those cars, and they're looking for those men. We will tell you a lot more about them tomorrow. They are the men that they would most like to find. Now, a question that sits in front of us is how high will the numbers go, the number of people who are exposed to the plague bacteria? The government says it is under control, but we have been seeing these numbers increase dramatically. It went from 92 to 816 and now standing at 2,150 dead. That is a dramatic increase. Question that we ask, is there something that we don't know? Obviously, we have to work through that. Obviously, we're hoping to figure all of that out. These are some of the things that we are sorting through. We are sorting through the critical questions of health in both New Jersey and Connecticut. We are sorting through the effort to find the people responsible for this. We are sorting through whether there is a chance that there may be other attacks that are hanging out there. We continue to pursue this 24 hours a day. Now, here at VNN, we end our newscast for the day. We remind you, however, that we resume our coverage at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we will bring you up to date on all the events that happened overnight. But 24 hours a day, you can stay informed with all the latest updates at VNN.com. TOPOFF3.com. We will see you back here bright and early at 9 a.m. For now, I'm Forrest Sawyer, and for VNN, we wish you a very good day.